Learning English Podcast.
Welcome to this deep dive. Today, we're exploring some ideas that, well, hopefully can bring a bit of clarity to things.
Yeah, things can get pretty complex, can't they?
Definitely. So we're looking at this piece. It's called Focus on Yourself and Stay Silent.
hmm
And it's really about finding maybe a pocket of calm and strength, I suppose, by looking inward.
And appreciating silence, turning down the volume a bit.
Exactly.
And our exploration today, it's
Mission, then, is to pull out the really valuable stuff, the insights that can help listeners cultivate some inner peace.
and maybe understand themselves a bit better amidst, everything life throws at us.
Okay, so let's maybe start with that contrast the piece draws, all the noise around us versus that inner peace we're often looking for.
Yeah, it points out how society often equates like loudness with being seen, with success.
Right. Visibility equals value, almost.
But this text really pushes back on that, doesn't it?
It does. It suggests that, real peace isn't necessarily found just by engaging with everything all the time.
It's a strong reminder. It's actually okay to be quiet.
Yeah, you don't always have to explain yourself.
Just be present with yourself.
Mhm.
It kind of touches on that quiet ego idea. True self-worth maybe comes more from inner calm.
Then constantly chasing attention or validation.
Exactly. And what's interesting there is how it implicitly asks you, the reader, or us, the listener, where do you get your sense of value?
Because that external validation, it can be so fleeting, right?
Totally. So by focusing inward on that piece, you're essentially building a more resilient foundation.
Something that isn't dependent on what everyone else thinks or says.
Right. Your worth doesn't just disappear when you're quiet or alone for a bit.
Okay, so that leads us nicely into this idea of self-focus itself. What does that actually mean according to this piece?
Well, it's careful to say it's not about being selfish.
Which is an important distinction, I think.
It really is. It frames it more as a fundamental self-respect.
Yeah.
Like recognizing your energy isn't limitless.
And you get to choose where it goes.
You have that right, yeah, to be mindful about directing it. And it prompts some, pretty direct questions to ask yourself. Things like, how am I actually feeling today? Not just fine, but really feeling.
Okay.
Or what do I truly want? Not what I should want, but what I want.
And what's one small thing I could do today that would bring me some peace?
Exactly, those kinds of check-ins. And ultimately, it really highlights that you personally, are the main person responsible for your own well-being.
The primary steward, yeah.
If you think about it more broadly, it's about shifting gears maybe, from being reactive all the time,
Just responding to whatever comes up.
yeah, to being more intentional. Self-focus encourages that pause. Check in with your internal compass first.
And then make choices that actually align with what you need, what you value.
It's about taking that agency over your inner state, like consciously choosing your thoughts when you feel negativity starting to, creep in.
That's a good example. That is taking agency.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the piece also talks about silence in a really interesting way. It's not just empty space.
No, not a void. It's presented as, powerful, actually.
Powerful how? Like communication.
Yeah, form of communication, definitely. And also a way to set boundaries, a vital way.
Okay, explain that a bit.
It means consciously choosing, okay, I'm not going to react to every little provocation.
Resisting the urge to jump in.
Right. Or not feeling like you have to constantly explain your personal growth or your choices to everyone.
Yeah, don't owe everyone an update on your internal journey.
Exactly. And just understanding that some fights, some arguments, some opinions, they just aren't worth your energy.
Your mental real estate.
Precisely. The piece even says something like, silence holds answers. Answers you might miss if it's always noisy.
That makes me think about how our brains actually need quiet sometimes to process things, right? To consolidate information.
That's a key point, especially about boundaries. In a world demanding constant connection, constant chatter,
Choosing silence can be a really strong statement.
it says my energy is valuable and I decide where it goes. It's not necessarily about hiding or avoiding.
But be intentional.
Yes.
Yeah.
Being selective about when you engage, how you engage. You protect that inner space for what really matters to you.
Absolutely. And that power of silence, it connects directly to protecting your peace, which the text really emphasizes.
It gets practical too.
Yeah. It offers some very, actionable strategies for guarding that inner calm.
Like what?
Well, things like consciously deciding not to get drawn into arguments with people who seem, determined to misunderstand you.
Oh, that's a big one.
Yeah.
Knowing when to just non-engaged.
Right. Or learning to say no to things without feeling guilty afterwards.
Easier said than done sometimes, but crucial.
Definitely. And gracefully backing away from situations or even people that consistently drain you.
It's engaging, yeah.
And letting things go without needing some big dramatic exit or announcement.
Letting it fade.
It really hammers home that your well-being is the priority, not necessarily making sure everyone else is always comfortable with your choices.
What's interesting there is that idea of, like, curating your environment, both outside and inside.
How do you mean?
Well, by intentionally choosing your interactions, who you spend time with, what you consume.
And managing your reaction.
Exactly. You're actively creating a more supportive ecosystem for your own peace to actually, grow, flourish.
You have more power than you think to influence your emotional state.
Right. It's about recognizing that power.
So, okay, this all sounds good, but how do you actually start doing this? How do you cultivate this self-focus day to day?
The piece gives some pretty concrete starting points, which is helpful.
Good. Like what?
It suggests setting up some kind of morning ritual.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be huge. Even just 10 minutes, maybe, before you grab your phone. For some gentle stretching or focusing on your breath.
Or journaling, or just sitting still.
Yeah, any of those, just carving out that quiet moment. It also mentions regularly checking in with your feelings, maybe through that journaling.
Becoming more aware of your internal weather, so to speak.
Exactly. And intentionally making time to be alone. For reflection. Not just being busy alone, but reflective alone time.
That's a good point. And it mentions curating your social media too, right?
Mm-hmm. Unfollowing accounts that consistently make you feel anxious or, less than.
Being mindful of what you're consuming digitally and practicing saying no.
Back to the no. Saying no to commitments that just don't feel right, that don't align with your well-being right now.
These all feel like, actual steps you could try, tangible things.
They are. And they're about creating those consistent moments for self-awareness, little investments in your inner life.
That can pay off significantly in terms of clarity, peace.
Yeah, exactly. It's not about being perfect at it overnight.
Just building small, sustainable habits, nurturing that connection with yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Now, something else the text brings up, which feels really relevant, is how other people might react.
Yes. When you start changing, prioritizing silence or yourself more.
People notice, right? And some might question why you're quieter or feel like you're creating distance.
It acknowledges that this can happen.
So what's the takeaway there?
The important thing, as the piece points out, is that you don't actually owe anyone a detailed explanation for prioritizing your own peace.
Or for setting boundaries.
Right. Their discomfort, yet they feel discomfort with your growth. Well, that might actually say more about their own stuff, their own resistance to change, maybe.
And that's not yours to carry.
It's not yours to fix or manage. It's like, when someone gets used to you being a certain way, any shift can feel unsettling to them. But that's about them.
That's a really crucial point, recognizing where their reaction is coming from.
Mm-hmm. And the text encourages you to stay centered in your own values, basically.
Yeah.
Don't let external pressure pull you back into old patterns just because it makes someone else more comfortable.
Okay. And the piece suggests that by doing this, by reducing the noise and turning inward, you gain clarity.
Profound clarity is how it puts it.
Clarity about what?
About what truly matters to you, what resonates, who genuinely supports you versus who just, benefits from you being a certain way.
Where you feel most alive, what environments nourish you.
And maybe just as importantly, clarity on what you're no longer willing to tolerate, what drains you.
And this clarity doesn't come from more information, more stimulation.
No, it really emerges from that stillness,
Yeah.
that quiet contemplation.
It's about letting your own inner voice get louder than all the external chatter.
Exactly. What's interesting there is how silence allows for, a deeper kind of discernment.
Discernment.
Yeah, it helps you tell the difference between what the world is demanding of you and what your own authentic self desires or needs.
And that clarity, that discernment, it empowers you to make better choices.
More aligned choices, yeah.
Yeah.
Which hopefully leads to a greater sense of, purpose or fulfillment.
There's also a really comforting reminder in the text for those times when you feel overwhelmed.
Yeah. What's that?
Like maybe overwhelmed by trying to please everyone or feeling misunderstood.
Okay, yeah. We've all been there.
It just reminds you, you don't have to carry every single burden. You don't have to fix things that aren't actually yours to fix.
permission to put some things down.
Right. And you don't have to constantly project this image of being strong all the time.
It's okay to not be strong sometimes.
It's perfectly okay to protect your energy, to rest, to just be without needing to perform or achieve anything in that moment.
That feels like such a weight off, doesn't it? A liberating message.
It really does.
And that reminder is so important because it pushes back against that constant societal pressure, you know? Be productive, be engaged, be visible.
Always be on.
Yeah. It validates rest.
Yeah.
It validates self-compassion. And it reinforces that idea.
Yeah.
Prioritizing your well-being isn't selfish. It's actually essential if you want to be resilient and effective long-term.
Giving yourself permission to just be can be incredibly restorative.
Definitely.
And ultimately, the piece kind of circles back to the fundamental importance of your own inner experience, your inner world.
It points out that, okay, other people might have opinions. They might judge your healing process or your quietness.
We see the outside, not the inside.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They don't have access to your internal landscape, the struggles, the growth, the journey you're actually on. So don't let their perceptions dictate your narrative, your story about yourself.
Honor what's happening within you. Trust that inner process.
Yeah, that really emphasizes how personal and often invisible this inner work is.
Right. What looks like doing nothing from the outside.
Could be a period of really profound internal processing and growth for you.
So trust your own timing. Don't look outside for validation of your own evolution. And the deep dive, it kind of concludes with this really powerful permission slip almost. It basically says, you are absolutely allowed to step back, to disappear for a while, if that's what you need.
No apologies needed.
Right. To rebuild yourself in silence. And then, when you're ready, to re-emerge without feeling like you owe everyone a full report or explanation.
That real growth often happens quietly, privately, behind the scenes.
Yeah.
That final point, it really hammers home that theme of self-trust again, doesn't it? And inner authority.
Trusting your own need for quiet, for solitude.
And allowing yourself that space to renew without needing anyone else's permission or even their understanding.
That period of retreat can be incredibly valuable.
For your long-term well-being, yeah.
Yeah.
And for coming back more authentically.
So wrapping up this deep dive into focus on yourself and stay silent, I guess the key takeaway is just how significant it is to prioritize your inner peace.
Through that self-reflection, yeah. And consciously embracing silence, not seeing it as empty, but as powerful.
And just remembering those quiet moments you carve out, they can actually be incredibly potent.
Leading to a much deeper, more real understanding of yourself.
So as folks listening reflect on this, maybe consider, what's one small way you could bring a little more self-focus or a bit more intentional silence into your day? Starting today, maybe.
Yeah, doesn't have to be drastic. Maybe it's just 5 minutes of quiet breathing when you wake up.
Or putting your phone in another room for, say, half an hour in the evening.
Little things like that.
And we'd really encourage you to keep exploring this. What specific parts of finding peace, of focusing inward? What resonates most strongly with you right now?
What feels challenging? What feels intriguing?
Reflect on your own experiences. Maybe look into other resources on mindfulness or self-care if this sparked something.
Yeah. Keep digging into what works for you.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.